Hello beautiful people, so today's video is going to be a little chatty video about Mental Health Awareness Month. I say about Mental Health Awareness Month, just mental health in general, because we need to talk about it, not just in May. But I thought that now would be a good time to release a little video about my experiences, my tips, and kind of my view on things. So sit down, grab yourself a cuppa and let's have a chat. So if you follow any of my other social media platforms, you will probably have seen me post about mental health quite a lot, especially in the last year or so. It's something that I'm now quite open about, but very much didn't used to be. But I'm in such a good place now that I can kind of speak about it, because for me, mainly now it is kind of in the past. Don't get me wrong, there are still days where it's really hard and it will never fully go away, but it's so much better now. I feel like there's a lot of content surrounding things like eating disorders and anxiety and depression, but from a more medical point of view, whereas I just kind of wanted to come on here as a human being who has lived it and talk to you about it and my experience and what helped me and all that kind of stuff. I briefly mentioned it in my last video, but if you follow me on TikTok or Instagram, you might have seen that I hit a huge milestone a couple of days ago. I reached 1 year in recovery. So a year ago, I was discharged from CAMHS services after 3 years of treatment for my eating disorder. And I am now 1 year completely free of treatment, haven't had any kind of treatment, nothing at all. Just been living my life, recovering on my own. Which, as you can imagine, has been up and down, very up and down. I'm not going to say it's been perfect, it hasn't at all. But it is honestly so nice to be living without services. So much of my life was just taken over. And like, not just by my eating disorder, but by services. So to be getting free of my eating disorder and completely free of services, like, I feel like my world has just massively opened up. Obviously, I'm so grateful for all the help that I did receive. Most of the help that I did receive. I'm sure every single one of you knows the track record with mental health services, and I experienced a little bit of it, but I was lucky enough to have a therapist who got me and really massively helped me, and is who got me to the place that I was able to be discharged from services and start recovering on my own. And that's something that I think is really important, is finding what works for you. This was specifically for my eating disorder recovery, but I feel like it applies to all. Finding the right therapist for you is so important. In CAMHS, I worked with 2 therapists before I worked with my final therapist who discharged me, and neither of them were a good fit for me, and that's fine. It's okay not to gel with people, and especially when it comes to talking about your mental health, you want someone who you're comfortable with, who gets you, who you feel like you can get on well with, because you're not going to open up to someone who you don't gel with. I think that was a big hindrance in the start of my time with CAMHS, just the fact that I just had the completely wrong people treating me. And don't get me wrong, you're not going to find this one person who's just going to cure everything. It doesn't work like that. It takes hard work. But it's finding that person who knows what works for you, knows how to push you, knows what your boundaries are, knows what kind of thing works, because certain parts of a typical recovery plan just didn't work for me. I never really gelled with a meal plan. It kind of just made it feel more disordered for me to have set things of what I was eating, what times. That for me just felt like I was feeding into my eating disorder rather than trying to get out of it. But I know that they can be super helpful for some people, and it's one of those things where you have to tailor your recovery to you and what works best for you. Tea break. Bloody love tea. So like I say, I was in treatment for 3 years, so it was quite a long process. The first 2 years that I was with CAMHS, I made zero progress. I got more ill. And then in the last year and a half-ish, when I was put with my last therapist, I did start making changes. And I do have to give credit to her, because she massively helped me change my mindset, because what I was going to go on to say is I had a mindset shift, but no one had explored that with me. It was all very much on intake and weight, which anyone who has an eating disorder will know. That's just not helpful. It's obviously essential in order to get you to a healthy place, but I basically was told we can't do anything until you are healthy enough for us to do something. But they could have done. They 100% could have done. And what worked for me was being basically just told what I have to do, told, like, given some coping strategies, and then just like leaving it at that, leaving the food side of it at that, and then the rest of my session was just based on mindset and the way I think and why I think like that and how I can switch my mindset. It was all just like cognitive. So we basically just took the focus off of food, because food isn't the problem. The problem is your brain and the way that you think and your cognitions. Food isn't actually the problem. Food is just a way of coping with the problem. And so for me, that was really helpful, because I think it was also the fact that when I was unwell, when I wasn't eating, I couldn't string a sentence together. Like, I was just a shell of a person. I was just miserable, not fun to be around, could barely hold a conversation. No wonder I didn't get anywhere in the first couple of years, because I couldn't even think. My entire thoughts were just consumed by food, food noise, all that kind of thing. So for me to try and think about the way that I think would just be impossible. And so in that respect, I do understand the approach of, well, you need to get to a healthy point before we can treat it, but there was no help with getting healthy at the same time. Whereas it started with a like split session. So I'd start with like the eating side and how I could cope with that, coping mechanisms and whatnot, and then do like cognitive. And so for me, a big motivator was, well, I need to fuel myself in order to get better, because in order to get better, I need to think about all this other stuff. And to do that, I need to be fueled. I don't know if that made any sense. Like, I could do this side because I wanted this side kind of thing. So that personally for me was a big motivator, because I think it's so difficult to try and not think about food when food is all you are basically thinking about and talking about. Like, even in therapy, that's all you were thinking and talking about. Once I'd started with that, I could start working on my brain, the way it works and why it works that way. I'm not going to go into that because it's very much personal to me. Every single person's eating disorder is different, stems for a different reason. It's all very personal, and it just wouldn't help anyone to know why I struggled, and I don't really want to talk about that. But the main point is, food wasn't the problem, and it isn't, period. Food is never the problem. And once you can kind of accept that and realise that it is actually the way you think that is the problem, the food kind of becomes a little bit easier. I say a little bit because it's still extremely hard. I'll be PG, extremely hard. And it does take a long time. Baby steps are kind of essential. You do kind of just need to take it in little bits because you don't want to overwhelm yourself, but then you need to be doing baby steps quite fast because if you just do little bits in like over a really long period of time, you're not getting anywhere. You're still allowing yourself to kind of be controlled. Whereas if you're taking baby steps but quite fast, you're still making progress while not allowing yourself to be controlled. I really don't know if any of this is making sense, so I'm really sorry if it's not. A big thing for me was kind of finding out where my eating disorder came from, like what triggered it, like the reasoning behind the way I was thinking. Because once you know what your thoughts are that trigger your actions, you can rationalize the thoughts. I feel like that applies with anxiety as well. Like, if you're feeling anxious and you know the reason why you're feeling anxious, you can think about it and you can rationalize that thought. That's something that still I do to this day. If I start having any kind of feeling, I think about what is causing that feeling and rationalize it, and then I feel better. And that's something that I worked on for a long time and used to be very bad at, but now I'm quite good at being able to like rationalize and bring myself like back down to me. Because a therapist once said to me, when you're in that state of panic, be it anxiety or panic around food or anything like that, you kind of just like leave your body. You go into like fight or flight, so you're kind of like out of your body deciding what to do. So instead of being like fight, flight, you'd like need to ground yourself back into your body. Literally did that physically, so that it is easier to like think. Because when you are in that like fight or flight, you're just kind of looking down at yourself thinking, I don't know what to do. But once you ground yourself with stuff like breathing exercises, distraction, all that kind of thing, once you are back in yourself, you can think about the thought, rationalize it, and the anxiety will go away for the most part, you know. For example, like if I was eating and started to panic, I'd be in my head about it. I'd like put myself back into me, think about the thoughts I'm having and why they don't make sense. Because 99% of the thoughts you have with an eating disorder make zero sense. Because your brain is trying to convince you of something that is just false. And because you are undernourished and underfueled, the like rational side of your brain isn't there to rationalize it. It's not got enough power going to it for you to be able to think That's just not right. So I think learning to rationalize and ground yourself is a huge help, especially in the like early days of recovery when you just kind of first start, because it's so daunting. Because at the end of the day, you're facing your biggest fear 6 times a day based on like a CAMS meal plan with 3 meals, 3 snacks. So you are literally facing it constantly. You are going to be scared, you're going to be anxious, you're going to be panicky, and you are going to immediately go into fight or flight. The more you do it, the more evidence you have that you can do it. That was another huge help for me. The more I did, the more I was like, I did this and I was fine. For example, me thinking that the worst thing in the world would happen if I ate this thing. Once I'd done it once, I could say, well, I did it this one time and everything was fine, so let's try it again. I'd do it then, it'd be fine. The more times you do something, the more evidence you have to say that you can do it. Like a challenge repeat type thing. So I think it's important with things like fear foods that you don't just do it once, you have to kind of do it consistently, continually, to build up that bank of evidence that you can do it. I fear I'm really not making sense, because this all makes sense to me, but I don't know if I'm just talking in gibberish. I hope not. Another thing in recovery is, I think it's very difficult to deal with seeing your body change. And as much as it's a beautiful thing to be recovering and getting your life back, it's also really hard, because you see your body changing, you see clothes not fitting, having to change clothes. Like for me personally, my body was something that I was so aware of. Watching my body change was so difficult. Seeing things like my clothes not fitting was really difficult for me. It's the small things like that that to someone without a disorder mindset, they just think, well, just buy a new pair of jeans. Like, it's an excuse, go buy yourself a new pair of jeans, treat yourself. But obviously, when you have that disorder mindset, that is the physical evidence that you are changing and you are getting better. I think it's quite common that a lot of people with eating disorders, the phrase like better or looking well is quite triggering, which is ridiculous. Like, to be told that you look well or you're doing better should be a compliment, because you're smashing it. But our brains are lovely and they like to twist things and make them into something negative. For me, for like the first part, I just wore a lot of baggy clothes and just tried not to take any notice of my body. Don't get me wrong, difficult. You know, you live in it. You constantly feel it and you constantly see it. I did just try and like take no notice of it. In the beginning, wearing baggier clothes would mean that while I was still in that kind of really hard bit where I was still pushing to like get to like a solid, stable place, I wouldn't notice if like my clothes started not fitting or whatever. So I was kind of trying to just eliminate as many triggers as possible. Obviously, it's impossible to not see your body, and especially like with an eating disorder, it's something that is constant, like body checking at any moment, and that is something that I just had to completely like go like cold turkey and just really push myself to just not do at all, because it's one of those things where you know your body is going to be changing. So by doing things like body checking, you are just like emphasizing it, highlighting it to yourself. Whereas if you just completely cut that and just try and eliminate as many ways of you being like aware of your body for that little chunk, like the more the better. Also things like calorie counting and food rules, it was one of those things where I just had to kind of just stop. With rules, obviously it takes a little bit of getting out of them. Like you might find yourself sometimes falling into them and not realising, but it's about holding yourself accountable and making sure that if you catch yourself doing something, to stop. Because you can say, oh, it's fine just this once, but how many times can you do that? Whereas if you're strict with yourself and think, no, I'm not going to do it at all, like with building up evidence, the more times you do it successfully, the more evidence you have that you can do it without the rule. Eating disorders as well trick you into thinking that this is kind of the only way to live now, and because it is so consuming and so tunnel vision, it is hard to see anything outside of that and see that you can live without it, and because you don't have the brain power to fight against the thoughts. So once you start getting somewhere and start fueling your brain, you do realise how much just better you feel. I felt a significant difference physically. Like I was putting such a toll on my body that just became so normal, and it's not at all. But your brain just convinces you, yeah, no, that's fine, that's so normal, because your brain is starved. You don't have the brain power to rationalise that thought. But once you start giving your brain the fuel that it needs, you can think, well, no, it's not normal to feel like this. And once you start to feel how it feels to live healthily and like feel your body feeling better, like in like a health way, like you feel better in yourself, that is also like a piece of evidence. Like I feel better without doing this. And that is like a motivation of, I don't want to feel like that. It's not normal to feel like that. I want to feel like this. I feel good. I feel healthy. With things like calorie counting, it's really hard to unlearn. I'm shocking at maths and my brain became like an actual human calculator. It is quite hard to unlearn those things and like unmemorize them. And like some things are still in there, but I just choose to ignore them. And I think what helps with that is to not actively seek them out, because if you are looking for that information, you are giving it back to your brain. You're giving yourself more memory of it. Whereas if you're not looking at it, it will eventually fade away. It's like revision. If you don't do it every day, it's not going to stay. And don't get me wrong, it's not as easy as that. It's not as easy as just don't look at it and it'll go away. It won't. It takes time. Like I say, it's still something that does pop up in my mind occasionally. But once you get to a more stable point with everything, you can just make the choice to, I don't want to say like make the choice to not care about it, but kind of. There is some things still now that I will like eat and the calorie content will come into my brain, but I don't do anything with that information. I just kind of like box it off. And that is all change of mindset. I don't care about it anymore. I'm not actively seeking it out. I'm not doing anything with the information. And that does take time, but it also takes like the determination of wanting to get better. Because if you want to get better, if you want to live your life freely, you have to just give it up. A lot of times when I try to attempt at going into recovery, I would say, I'll do this if I can keep this. I'll do this if I can keep this. And you can't negotiate with your eating disorder. Like, it will win. The more you give it, the more it takes. So it's one of those things where you just need to cut dead everything. And again, it takes time. It takes a lot of time. But it does need to be an active choice. It can't be like you let it slowly dwindle away. You need to actively choose to not engage in behaviours. And like I said before, if you catch yourself doing it without realising, stop it. I do think that is a very big part of it, is deciding that you want to get better. Because if you go into recovery not wanting to get better, then you won't. That was a very big thing for me, is that I was motivated and wanted to get better. I had reasons to get better. And so when I was struggling, I would think about my motivation for getting better. For things like motivation, one thing that my therapist had me do is make a bit of like a mood board of all the reasons why I want to get better. So I had like pictures of my friends and family on there. I had things that I like to do that I couldn't do because of my eating disorder. I had things about like my future on there, and it used to be up in my room and I had it as my phone lock screen so that I had a constant reminder of why I am doing this. Because recovery is hard. It is so hard. You are having to push yourself every single day. There's no day off. It is constant. It is a constant fight every single day. So without motivation, when it is really difficult, when you have a big chunk of bad days, it can be easy to just think, I'll just go back to it. And your eating disorder will try and convince you that that is the best thing to do, but it is never the best thing to do. And the further into recovery you get, the more motivation you have. Because like I said, your world starts to open up. You start to feel like a functioning human again. When I was unwell, I was just plodding through life. It was just wake up, go to sleep, wake up, go to sleep. I didn't have a life. I wasn't living. And when you realise that there is so much more to life than that, and that you deserve more than that, that is when you can really start to flourish into recovery. Because every single person deserves to eat, deserves food, deserves to live their life. There is absolutely no reason for you to not deserve food, for you to not deserve to eat, for you to not deserve to live your life to the fullest, to be the best version of yourself. No matter what your brain is telling you. You are deserving of recovery, you are deserving of food, you are deserving of happiness, you are deserving of life. And a life with an eating disorder isn't a life. It took me a very long time to get to a point where I am now, but even at the start of my recovery, to get to a point where I could engage in recovery and stick to it. And I think it's about really tuning in with yourself as much as you can. To do that, you need to fuel yourself. You need to find the motivation. Why do you want to recover? What reasons do you have to recover? For example, when I was unwell, I couldn't do performing arts. I couldn't dance, I couldn't do any of that because I was too unwell to. And that has been my life since I was 3 years old. I've been dancing since I was 3. A big motivator for me was to get back to do what I love and what makes me me. Another thing was to take the strain off myself, but also my family. They had to watch me be unwell and not be able to really do anything. It took a while, but I saw that, and they don't deserve that. I don't deserve it, but neither do they. I think it's incredibly hard to be a family member of someone with an eating disorder because there is nothing you can do. It is pretty much on the person with the eating disorder. It's on you to get better. Your family and your therapist and your friends can support you, but you have to make the change. No one can do it for you. My mum was my biggest supporter and did everything she possibly could for me and was there cheering me on every single second of the way. And I would not have been able to do it without her. No question. Having a support system is so incredibly important, to have someone there being your cheerleader when you can't be. There was times when I couldn't find the positives. I found it hard to even have my motivation motivate me. But to have someone there to remind you of that when you can't yourself is so helpful. And I will never be able to thank my mum enough for everything that she did for me. The rest of my family and my friends too were just incredible. All the people who stuck with me and helped me, honestly, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. And that again was another motivator for me, because for my family it was, I want to be the Blaze that they used to have. I want to be me again. And with my friends it was, I want to be a good friend. I want people to want to be around me. I want to be again. And if you are surrounding yourself with the right people, they will want that for you as well. I think they're the main things eating disorder recovery related that I kind of want to cover. I don't know, it's a very broad thing that is still quite difficult to talk about, even though I'm like a year into my recovery and I'm solidly doing well. I do still have my days where the thoughts are still there, but I'm at a place now where I can fight against them, I can rationalise them and not engage in them in any way. Just because you are doing better doesn't mean that it goes away, which is the hard part of recovery, because it can feel like I've done all this work to get rid of this thing to still have it. But the fact that you can still have those thoughts and not engage in them shows that the work paid off. I do get emotional talking about it because I lost so much of my life to an eating disorder, and it's only been in the last year that I have started living. That's the last thing on your mind when you're struggling. You don't care about all the life that you're losing because your eating disorder takes over. It doesn't let you think about that, but also that's just not important. I do find myself thinking about and kind of going over all the things that I could have done and all the things I missed out on. It's almost just kind of being bitter, to be bluntly honest, like bitter about the things that I've missed out on and the life that I've missed out on. It's just not helpful. And when I start to think about that and feel that way, I'll either journal about it or talk about it. And the main takeaway is that you can't do anything about it. Can't do anything about the things you've missed out on, but you can ensure that you don't miss out on anything else. Recovery is hands down the best thing I have ever done, and it is the thing that I am most proud of myself for doing. It's one of the hardest things I've ever done, but the most worth it. Because to be blunt and realistic, you can't live with an eating disorder. In both ways, you can't live your life if you are constantly engaging in behaviours, but the reality is that eating disorders are the deadliest mental illness, and if you do not recover, your eating disorder will probably kill you, and no one deserves that. You deserve to live. You deserve to live a long, happy life, free of an eating disorder. Talking about it even still, like I said, it still makes me emotional. I wanted to talk a little bit about kind of other areas of mental health like anxiety and depression and stuff, because they're things that I have struggled with as well, coinciding with my eating disorder and separate from it. I used to suffer from really bad panic attacks to the point where I couldn't function, and my anxiety was stopping me from doing so many things. And the stuff that people tell you works, for the most part it does. Learning things like breathing techniques, distraction, grounding, learning what your triggers are and how you can manage them, all of that really helped me. Looking into that and trying different things and seeing what works for you is incredibly helpful, because there are so many ways for you to ground yourself and to rationalise yourself, and the way that works for me might not work for you. There are so many that most won't work for you, but once you find the ones that do, you can use them and you can have them inside to be able to pull them out when you need them. Another thing is kind of like exposure therapy. Exposing yourself to your triggers can help you to deal with them because you're getting the practice of dealing with them. And I think, again, that is something very personal to what will work for you, and that is something to get actual medical advice on. But I do think with anxiety, exposure therapy is really beneficial in many different ways as well. Like, I was very anxious about concerts, and so I just started going to them. Just kind of cold turkey, went to one. And I was quite anxious, but then I used the techniques that I'd banked up to ground myself, and then had the best time. And I do. I love concerts now. I've got 2 coming up this year. I'm seeing Olivia Rodrigo and Gregory Alan Isakov. Things like going into crowded areas. If you do things little and often and expose yourself to them, they become easier over time. I think things like that you can do yourself. You can challenge yourself of going into a shopping centre once a week and keeping up that consistency to continue to expose yourself to it, to prove to yourself that you can do it and everything will be okay. Because once you've done it once, you can see that it will be okay and you can use that as evidence to rationalise your thoughts. I have said rationalise so many times in this video. Keyword, very important, very, very important. Another thing is journaling. Writing down those thoughts and getting them out of your head and putting them on paper can help to rationalise them. For me, particularly when I'm anxious, it feels like there's just a big ball of thoughts in my head. And so to be able to rationalise it is quite difficult because you can't pick out what you're feeling or what the thoughts are. And so to write down everything you're feeling, you can see them all. They're not in a ball, they are laid out there for you. And you can literally, like a list, go down, rationalise each one, think about why you're feeling that way and how you can stop it. So like unscrambling your thoughts and putting them down onto paper can massively help. And again, just talking about how you're feeling. If you're feeling anxious, speak to someone about it, because other people can also help to rationalise how you're thinking. Because our anxious brain will convince us that our anxiety is certain. And because you're in that panicky fight or flight, you can't unthink that. Whereas if you share that thought with someone else, they can say, well, no, of course not, because X, Y, Z. On the topic of depression, I don't really have too much to say. The main thing that I do want to talk about is medication. I think that as much as we are trying to fight the stigma around medication for mental health, it is still very much there. I just wanted to give a bit of a reminder that if you need medication to be okay and to feel okay and to get through day to day, that is okay. Some of us do just need that little bit of extra help to fight what's going on in our brain. For me, I was on medication for a chunk of time because I was struggling with many different things. I have an eating disorder, I had anxiety, I had depression. So if I could alleviate any of that, then I was going to. And so if taking medication is going to be able to help you to function, to recover, to be able to get on with daily life, to get better, then that's fine. I don't even really understand the stigma around it. I don't understand why we demonise needing help. Therapy is so advocated for and it's now such a common thing to be told to go to therapy. You hear so many people talking about going to therapy, but medication is still quite a taboo and is still quite stigmatised, when in reality it's just a way to help yourself. So I just wanted to touch on that a little bit to kind of remind anyone who may be watching this that is on medication that that's fine. Or if anyone's thinking about it and is scared of it, to talk to someone about it. Talk to your GP. See what your options are. Don't be scared to look at your options. That might not be what's right for you, but don't rule it out because of the stigma around it. Well, it's gotten progressively darker around me because it is 8 p.m. as I'm filming this. So apologies for that. It's probably just been getting gradually throughout the video. But I just wanted to make this video to talk about it. Talking about mental health is so important, and as much as there has been a lot done to fight the stigma around talking about mental health, it still exists. As well as that, I wanted to kind of give my insight and tips. I don't know if they were really tips. It was more kind of what helped me and just basically a bit of a chat about recovery. Whether it was helpful or not, I'm not sure. I hope it was. If not, hope you liked the chat. I fought incredibly hard to get to where I am today, and I'm going to talk about it because ultimately without recovery I would not be here. And for me, real people talking about their recovery and what helped them, and just chatting about their mental health really helped me, because you see a lot from like doctors and therapists, but that can be quite hard to digest, and for me it was a lot of the time. And so seeing someone like me, just a normal girl, talking about her experience and what helped her was the most helpful. And ultimately I do want to help people in any way that I can. If this video helps one person, then I'm happy. I've quite liked just sitting and having a chat. You're gonna get a few chin wags out on me now. If there is anything that you would like me to talk about, then please do let me know. Like I said, I do want to help people in any way that I can. And if it's me sitting with a cuppa chatting at a camera, probably not making much sense, then fab. To everyone watching this, I want to remind you that you are so loved, you are so worthy of love, you deserve to live a full, happy life. And if you need a sign to take that plunge into recovery, this is it. From someone 1 year in, I am living my absolute best life, and it is the best decision I have ever made. You will not regret recovery. The only thing you will regret is not doing it sooner. So like I said, if you needed a sign, this is it. Sending each and every one of you so much love. I am so thankful for all of you and all of the support that you give me. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you again very soon.